Welcome to the Extraordinary Marriage. I am welcoming today Kim Stanley. Hey, Kim.
Hey, Connie. Good to be with you today.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear a little bit about your life with Joe. So I want you to go ahead and tell us now kind of some things of what you're doing these days.
Mm. Well, Joe and I have been in worship ministry for over 30 years and full time. That's what we do. So we're still getting to do that by the grace of God. So thankful that He still allows us to travel and sing and lead worship together. And we do it, however the Lord allows us in church services and revivals and conferences and that kind of thing. And so we're staying busy with that. And it's funny though, that's in new seasons, you kind of the Lord moves in differently. So you find yourself trying to recreate and it's like the gospel. You keep the message the same, but the method might change, right? So we're always
Yes.
trying to just recreate. So I do a lot of women's ministry too on top of that. And I lead at a local Bible study here in town and then do some writing. So there's a lot of different things going on right now in our ministry. So we're very excited and blessed.
Well, I also know that you are doing a podcast of your own. You want to tell us
Yeah,
about that?
sure. Yeah. About 2.5 years ago, my good friend Martha Wilson, who is the founding director of Touching Hearts Ministries, and that's where I lead worship every week. It's a wonderful ladies ministry. She and I started a podcast, and we call it a burst of hope, and just love it. It's been such a delight, and as you know, a learning curve trying to figure out how to actually do a podcast, but it's been so much fun. And we've had guests. We usually have guests. You have been a guest on our podcast, Connie.
Yes, I
So
have.
grateful for that. And we just allow people to share their stories of hope. And I think because stories are so powerful. And when someone hears another person's story and how God has become God of hope to them, we just, we latch onto that and it bolsters our faith and just lets us know we're not alone. And we've had a lot of fun doing that.
I love that because I believe people really need hope. They need
Mhm.
encouragement. They need love. And there's so many people that are alone out there or feel
Yeah.
like they're all alone. And
Yeah.
so these days, you have a podcast you can listen to. I'm not so sure what happened to radio stations. I remember back in that day, right?
Yes.
So, well, Kim and I have known each other for really a long time. We
Mhm.
actually were both in Mary Kay Cosmetics together.
Yeah.
She crossed my path one of the first times, maybe singing at my church many, many years
Hmm.
ago. And so I can't wait to hear your love story because that's what we do on here is we share how we met our spouse
Oh.
and somebody's going to really connect to that. So you have a special story because you guys met. What am I right? Is it Nashville?
It was actually Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay. Okay. So go ahead and
Yes, yeah.
start there.
Okay. So we were both in college, didn't know each other. I was at University of Cincinnati Conservatory. Joe was going to Ball State, Muncie, Indiana. And in that area of the country, there's a big amusement park called it was Kings Island at the time, and they own several parks all over. And so we both auditioned to try to get into the Cincinnati park, but they ended up putting us in a sister park in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was called Carowinds. And so
Hmm.
we met, and we were both in a country show together. We didn't know any of our cast. You just come and find some people you can room with. And so I found some of the girls in my cast, and this is a funny story, but so the day we had gotten fitted for our costumes already. This was back in 1981. So country music in Charlotte, North Carolina. There was lots of blue gingham. That was my outfit. It was blue gingham for the first half, and then we were in the green room and we noticed that there was some other people getting fitted for their costume, and I looked over and the guy had a blue gingham shirt, which meant he was probably going to be my partner in the show. So that
And
was
you
Joe Stanley.
didn't know that already?
No, no. And then so that night all met each other and we kind of auditioned for the solos that are in the show. And that was back in the day when I'm really dating myself, but when Kenny
You already
Rogers,
did.
yeah, I did, didn't I? 81. When Kenny Rogers' song Lady was popular, uh, back, yeah, centuries ago. So Joe sang that song as a solo. I'm not kidding. I couldn't take my eyes off of him. So it kind of was, we tease each other. It really was kind of a love at first sight thing. But because of the nature of our work, that there were six of us in this cast plus the band. We got really close, all of us very tight, very quickly, because we worked 12, 14 hours a day together every day. And so we got to know each other
Well, you not
fast.
only work together in those kind of
Yeah.
situations, but you spend hours and hours practicing together,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. So you get to know everybody's like point, like when they're going to break down and what sets them off. And anyway, it's really fun. So we got to know each other quickly and actually got married about a year and a half later because we were both in college and we were trying to figure out what our paths were going to be. So
What you
we tried
wanted
to
to
stay in
do.
that. Yeah. So we both wanted to stay in entertainment and I had majored in musical theater, but I wanted to be married too, so I didn't know for sure how those would marry each other. So we just decided we get married and try to make a go of it. And we did a couple USO tours, and we worked for that same production company that owned the parks and for seasonal work. And then Joe finished his degree, and we were still working in shows. And in the meantime, we had a baby.
Whoa. Kind of sounds like my husband and I, because, we met through music also, because he plays piano
Mm-hmm.
and we both sing, and we met in chorus in high school.
Oh
And
wow.
actually, after we were dating, I intended to go to the North Carolina School of the Arts for dance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because something that was going on at the School of the Arts that year when I went to audition, they asked me to come back to summer school, and I didn't get to do that, or I made a decision not to do that. And there it goes. You get married and you start having
Yep.
babies, and there it
Yes.
goes. So we're in
That's
music
right.
also. Okay, so
That's
you
cool.
guys, let's recap. So you guys are
Mm-hmm.
now married,
Mm-hmm.
and you're still trying to do the music thing, and you both sing
Mm-hmm.
beautifully,
Mm.
um and now you
Thank
have a
you.
baby, so now where's that
Yeah.
take?
Well, I think I was the first one to have take your baby to work day back in the 80s. Joe was working and teaching some too on the side because he had finished his degree and he was a phys ed teacher. That's what his degree was in. So sometimes
Oh.
he would take some subbing jobs, but then he'd perform at night with this band. So I was taking Jordan, our oldest, to work with me. She was a backstage baby for a while. We did that for probably about 3 seasons of shows, and it was a unique thing. But she learned to walk, and we have a picture of her. We did this is back in the day of Hanna-Barbera, so she learned to walk with Smurf hands and feet because we were in a Smurf show then, and just some other stuff. So I had a great team. I mean, we our shows were only like 20, 30 minutes long, so whoever was swung out that day would hold Jordan in the audience while I did the show, and they just did that. So it was really fun. It worked out okay for a while.
Somehow I'm wishing that we had some pictures way back when. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's many a mom out there who is working from home these days, and their kids
Mm,
are at home. But it's really
yes,
different when you take them out on a set. But the thing is
it is.
everybody loves little ones, especially really
Hmm.
small little ones. And everybody helps out, and it just becomes like a family, doesn't it?
It does. It really was. Yeah, it was great. And we did that for a couple years. And then Joe got involved in a band that actually brought him we were living in Cincinnati. So he got involved in a show band that brought him down to Atlanta. And that's what brought us to Atlanta. He
Oh.
performed this was BC days. So he performed in a nightclub. And because it was attached to a hotel, they were doing all kinds of 50s and 60s music with costume changes. And it got to be very popular. So people were coming by the groves to watch this band, and they were bringing their families. So it was not your typical nightclub audience. It was very family oriented. And then they decided to add a female singer. So I got that job. And so that's how I
Woo.
got down. And so Jordan and Joe and I lived in hotel rooms for a few months, traveled a little bit with that band. And then through all that is how we started visiting. Someone invited us to church, and we went to church and heard the gospel and I had a lot of religion in my life, but I heard the gospel, and then the Lord just changed our hearts and showed us His grace and turned our lives upside down. And then we went to sing for Him.
So,
and with
so
his
you're saying you're in
kids.
ministry now, but back in those
Yeah.
days, whenever you guys got together, you weren't doing, religious music or religious shows or anything
Not
like that. You were
really.
doing
No.
popular kind of things. I have to
Mm-hmm.
tell you, I envy you a little bit on that because, I love the performances and the singing and dancing, and I love that kind of stuff.
I do too.
Um, so what would you think, before you continue, what would be the difference of those early days and the 10, 20 years after that?
Mm-hmm.
What would be the differences? Can you think of anything?
Oh, yeah. I mean, personally, just the motivation to do all of that. You know, when you're performing, it's a competitive field, and you're always aware of how your audience is receiving you. I mean, and my husband would say the same thing. You're gauging your performance based on how the audience is responding. And so that means if you're not secure in who you are up and down all over the place. And you might do some things,
Mm,
get a lifestyle, your motivation just is from a whole different perspective. But because God showed us who he was, and because now we're followers of Jesus, that has all changed. Whatever we do, whether we're singing, if we were singing secular music, if we were doing anything, our motivation now is just to glorify God in whatever we do, and to bring his presence into a situation, into a room. And so that's a major thing, and that affects your marriage too, I'd say, big time.
and I think that's finding your center.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go another direction because, today we have so many areas of social media, and people see your very best when you're on social media. I mean,
Yes.
none of us post our pictures when we're having a down day or when we're
No.
depressed or we're frustrated. Nobody sees those pictures, and pretty much
Mm-hmm.
everybody has those times. But we start to really get stuck on how things look on the outside.
Yeah.
And I think that, young marrieds, especially these days, are looking at, somebody else's family as they're having babies and having toddlers or get togethers and all the things they're getting to do, or whether they have a lot of money or whether they have a little bit of money.
Yes.
And I think we start to look at others thinking they have it better than us, but we never know what's going on inside
Mm-mm.
somebody's doors. And
Mm-mm.
I have found that whenever we have challenges, we bring them with us into marriage sometimes, and people have some troubles that way. So my main thing would be just to remind people not to look at the outside. Of course, for you
Mm-hmm.
guys, here you are singing, professionally, and you're getting to do it together, and you're getting to take your baby with you. So that's certainly
Mm-hmm.
great. But there's
Mm-hmm.
also always a little hardship, in trying to do all that. But I'm sure it was
Mm-hmm.
great for you guys. But I just want to remind people it looks so wonderful, but no matter what you're doing, um, first of all, it's not instant, it's not perfect. Everything takes work. And so you
Mm-hmm.
guys are in the middle of that right here as you're, trying to keep your marriage together, take care of your baby at the
Yeah.
same time, right?
Yeah. 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 It was a challenge. But when you're so young in those days, you don't have anything to compare it to. And you just
Nope.
think, we're just going to go make this work, and I'm thankful that it did, but it had changed as the years went by, because then we got, plugged into our church, and we started traveling and singing in churches and leading worship and having more children.
Huh,
So
yeah.
traveling with 4 kids or was a challenge or imbalance for me as a mom. It was a
Hmm.
balance of how much can we do. And I did not homeschool my kids. They were very plugged into the community and to our home church, and we just felt like that was the best thing here for them at the time. So we were balancing, how much can we be gone, who's going to help us with our kids, so it was as a mom, there was a lot of that was a struggle sometimes, I felt, but God always provided. And Joe always came alongside. He just reminded me that if God's called us to ministry, he's called our whole family, and that may look different for our family than it does for someone else. We
Hmm.
can't, like you said, we want to compare our story to somebody else's. Everybody I knew that was in full-time ministry had an RV, and they took their kids with them and homeschooled, and to me that was like the
Mm.
ultimate. I was like, that's what we should be doing, honey. And Joe's like, I don't think so. This is where God's called us. Let's just be content, and it really helped me to see this is what God's called us to, and he's going to give us the grace to do it. And he did, and he still does. So,
And we do get a preconceived idea about what we
yeah,
want for our life and how we think it should look, right?
right, right. Yeah.
Well, so as you guys are married and you keep on having a kids,
Mhm.
let's see, what would you consider a challenge in marriage besides kids and trying to juggle
Mm,
children?
yeah. Well, I think one of the things that you highlight on your program is communication. I believe that's probably the biggest thing for us. I am non confrontational to the nth degree, and especially in the early days. I've gotten better. I've had to learn. And Joe is not, but he's very passionate. So when he's speaking, it's very passionate. And if he's in a good mood, it's passionate. If he's angry, it's passionate. And I didn't know how to balance that in the early
Yeah.
days. And I would take it personally. And he wasn't, it was just his way of communicating. And so I had to learn not to be, and still learning, don't have it down yet, but not to be overly sensitive and to realize he's venting, let him vent. And I'm the one, that God has given me the grace and the privilege to come alongside and say, I can listen to you. Tell me what you're thinking. I'm just going to listen. I'm not going to take it as, something you're saying against me. We all need those sounding boards. And, I think communication is probably the number one, and still continues to be a challenge as we're in our, nesting, or what's called golden years.
Oh, I don't like to
Yeah.
say that, Kim.
I don't either.
We're not there yet.
Golden is, yeah. Well, we have a little more freedom in our time with the kids not being here, I guess.
That
Yeah.
is absolutely true. Well, what I'm hearing from you is that often people are opposites.
Yes,
The
very
opposites
much.
attract. And so, we do wear our feelings on our shoulders. And whenever somebody's getting, quote, passionate, you know, we all do that. We get passionate about what we believe. We get passionate and
Hmm.
we go to defend ourselves. We get passionate when we need to make a point. But everybody's not as passionate as that. And I call that
Hmm.
also like straightforward, that person who they tell you like it is. And there's a great
Hmm.
value in that. But sometimes we do get our feelings hurt. And for you guys, and like for many other couples out there too, you have to just learn as you go. You have to let go of things. And one of the biggest things is there are certain folks out there who have trouble forgiving. And I think we all
Oh,
pout a little bit once in a while, right? But it's like they have
yes.
trouble forgiving.
I
And,
know.
sometimes you have to let go and move on, or you just keep dragging the dirt and the junk with you, right?
Yeah, that's a big, big thing. I'm so glad you said that, because I was thinking that before we met today about how major forgiveness is in a relationship. I mean, let's face it, all of us are going to get wounded somehow along the way every day and we have to know what to do to that. And God really probably saved our marriage through teaching us about forgiveness. Because I was like that. I was the powder. I was the one that, I thought I was being holier than thou and letting Joe have the upper hand on the relation, on the confrontation or on the argument. I would walk away. And one day he called me, he goes, why are you walking away? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what to say to this. I couldn't process my feelings. But I've learned over time to stay there in the argument. But what happened is I took all those old things that happened in the past, and they all kind of snowballed together. And I realized I had
Yes.
built up resentment over
Yes.
the years and how we communicated. And I had to forgive. And it's, when we forgive people, we're really forgiving the wounds that it caused in us. And
Hmm.
there's a wonderful ministry and dear friends of ours, Tony and Bruce Hebel, and their ministry is called Forgiving Forward. And they go all over the world and teach this, and it's life changing, but it's the gospel. And so learning how to forgive and choosing to forgive is freedom. I mean, you can walk in freedom, and it's really is a game changer for any marriage, any relationship.
Well, as you mentioned the word resentment, resentment is something that festers and grows, and sometimes it goes over a long period of time, and sometimes we're not the problem in the beginning. Maybe it's our spouse, but eventually we start to act and react differently than we would have if we weren't.
Mm,
We know we're frustrated. You get
right,
frustrated. It's just one of
right.
those things. But so sometimes I call this the crazy cycle. There's actually a book on it and it's called The Crazy Cycle. And it's
Uh-huh.
once one partner gets, irritated or frustrated or mad or pouting or sulking or whatever's going on. And then men, probably I've said this before, but it's like men need to be respected and women need to
Mm,
be loved. And
hmm
once a woman's not feeling loved because he has just been talking
hmm
to me like that, right? She's not feeling loved. And the next thing you know, maybe she's not making dinner, or maybe she's making that
mm.
food at dinner that he doesn't like so much, or, there's a lot of, oh, I'm sorry, you don't have any clean underwear. Sorry about that. She's starting to pull out some things that she's like, sticking it to him here and there.
Right,
And the next thing he's not feeling respected. No one's
right.
listening to each other. And it just is a cycle that goes round and round. And
It
somebody
is.
has to stop it. And, the only
Hmm
person that can stop it is usually us because we can't
Mm,
control anything the other person is doing.
that's true.
So those
That's
kind of
very
things
true.
do grow and get bigger and bigger and cause us trouble. So, all right. So you've got a bunch of kids. How many kids did you have while
4.
you're singing,
Yeah.
right? While you're doing all
Yeah.
this?
hmm Yeah, 4. And they ranged in ages. There's like 12 years between the oldest and the youngest. So we had lost a set of twins in between. So it's kind of like we had
Oh,
2 here and then 2 there. So we had 2 little families, but it was great because my oldest daughter helped me so much with the younger ones because she was like 11, 12, 13 when they were coming up. And she was a big help to me.
that's helpful. So, you've
Yeah.
had that loss, and that's always a hard thing. And there's
Yeah.
probably somebody else out there who's had that same kind of thing happen.
hmm
But having a 11 or 12-year-old and they learn to be mommy, right? They learn mommy
Yes,
skills whenever
they
they're all
did.
helping each other. One of the funny
Uh-huh.
things from my youngest son, who's remarried and he has 9 kids now, was
Mm.
we were talking.
Wow.
I was talking to his wife, Justine, and I said, Justine, you got to get these kids to like help you do stuff because
Yeah.
it's just too hard to do it all by yourself.
Mm.
And she was a person who just takes care of everyone and just was, doing everything for everyone. Well, one day I went over and there was a chalkboard up on the kitchen wall, and I said, "Oh, what is that?" And she said, "Oh, we started a chore chart."
Oh,
And
great.
so a couple of months later, I saw the chore chart was still up there because I was one of those who would, I would start the chores and I would put them on the refrigerator. But then, within a couple of days, the chart was pretty and maybe there was an X or a check here and there on it. And then in a couple of days, I just forgot it was there. But here's what happened with her was that I said, "How's that going with the kids doing their chores? Are you having to nag them or bug them about it?" She
Yeah.
said, "No, there's a few who actually do their chores and they make sure everyone else is doing their
Oh,
chores."
that's
I'm like,
great.
that is a good kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
how about your kids? Were they all
Huh.
helpful or just that oldest one?
They, they were all helpful in their own ways. They're all different personalities, and so my thing was I would get frustrated. I'd probably try the chore chart for about 2 weeks, and then it didn't go the way I wanted, and then I'd just like try something else. But I realized that all their personalities were different, and you had to kind of come at it a different way. Like our oldest daughter was very compliant and just kind of took the ball and ran with it, and our son was not so much that, but you had to make it fun for him. And
Oh,
if you could make it like a game or he could be moving around and a challenge, then he liked that. And then our last two, they seemed to pick it up faster. I think because I'd been a mom for longer when they came, it was easier for me to say, take this, and I let them have more responsibility at a younger age. So they seemed to kind of catch on faster and just start, like my youngest son, he used to cook for himself, growing up here. He just liked to do that. He's a great cook now. He cooks for his wife and at home, and I love when he comes home because he'll cook for us. So, I think I learned from parenting longer to give them more responsibility too. So that helped.
And the youngest ones, they're watching the older ones. And
Yeah.
so if they're
Hmm.
taking responsibility, now if you got one that's older and they're not doing anything, that is not helpful. But as long as those older ones are working, I think the younger ones learn
Yeah.
everything a little bit quicker. And I love the idea that your son was cooking, because that goes back to the personalities too, like, and talents. We all have different talents.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
he liked to cook. Is that the same one
Hmm.
who liked for things to be fun?
Yeah, no, that's a different one.
Okay, we got a handful of kids.
Yeah.
So,
That was our
yeah,
oldest son.
yeah, but
Yeah.
we like it when
Yeah.
somebody likes to cook. So as
Yes, we
the
do.
as the years go on, and you guys continue to do church ministry and all that kind of thing, was that your like, was I don't want to say was that your only work, but when you're not stationary at a church, some of the years were you
Hmm.
stationary at a church, and some years relying on
Hmm.
churches to call you in?
Yeah. It kind of was a combination of both along the way. There were times when we only did that. And then there would be times that, um, like our home church asked us to lead worship at a second campus and start there. And we were able to do both. We could help Sunday mornings, and then we could travel. Back then, they were doing Sunday night services a lot of places, or during the week. So it's just been different along the way, which is part of how God's provided for us. So it's been wonderful.
Well, as we talk about strengths and talents, can you think, and it's really always hard to share your own talents and strengths. It's like,
Mm,
but you know what? I think it's important for women uh, to build confidence and to claim what they're good at, because I know I was
mm,
one also that I would tend to put myself down, or you think that's being humble, right?
yeah.
But
Hmm.
at a certain point it tends to start to tear you down. And
Yes,
so,
it does.
Kim, I'm going to ask
Mhm.
you, what are a few of your superpowers? I know you're really great at some things, besides I bet you're a great listener.
Well, I thought I was at one time, and I think I need more
I think
practice.
you
Which
are.
is I do like to listen. I do enjoy listening. I don't know, superpowers.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
superpowers.
I know. I love being around people. I love hearing people's stories, and I love seeing God at work in people's lives. I love to read. I don't know if that's a superpower, but I don't know. That's a hard one, Connie. It's
Something
hard to
that you
say.
enjoy. Okay, so I didn't mean to cut you off on that, but I want all of our listeners to think about that, because as women or as men, because I hope that there's both listening to the podcast, we do have to stop sometimes, and maybe just between us and God, if we can't say it out loud, because
Yeah.
we don't want to be vain, you know. But I do think that sometimes acknowledging your superpowers and knowing that you are good at some things, I think
Hmm.
God wants us
Yeah.
to acknowledge the talents, that he's given
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And
Well, I did think of one I forgot to mention because it's kind of a new one. And I'm writing a lot these days, and I
oh,
mean I just started out writing blogs, so I'm writing a book. I've got some teaching things I'm working on. And so about 12 years ago, I challenged myself to call myself a writer, even though I didn't feel like it. And I said, I'm going to start calling myself a writer, just between me and God. Yeah. And that really helped though. But I love to write. It's a fun new season for me. So that, I don't know if I call it a superpower, but it's certainly something that I love to do,
but
and
it's
I'm hopefully
something,
getting better at.
yeah, that you enjoy. And the more you do something, the better you get at it. And I think
Yeah.
we have to call ourselves what we are, what we want to
Yeah.
be, where we're at. And have you ever run across a really super confident person and they tell you who they are and what they are and how
Hmm.
great? And then, like, 5 years later down the road, you find out they were just starting out.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But that's part of that self-talk. You have to have healthy self-talk to yourself. Um, and I think biblically, that's like you said, we're just saying what God's doing, and so it's not in a haughty way. We are affirming the gifts of God in us when
There
we
you
do that.
go.
Yeah.
And of course, one
Hmm.
of your super gifts is singing and singing and everything, things coming from the heart. So I think that would
Mm.
be your superpower. I'm going to give that to you today, that
Yeah. Well,
things
thank
that
you.
you do, Kim, come from the heart, and
Mm.
things that come from the heart speak to other people.
Mm.
So, all
Mm.
right. So, what do you think are
Amen.
some superpowers your husband has? I know I could always name off a
Oh,
million superpowers my
yeah,
husband
I
has.
can. He's hilarious. He loves to tell stories. He is the fun guy in our house, um, and yet he has great compassion for other people. He's a storyteller, but he likes to hear other people's stories too. But he is definitely the life of the party, and you're gonna know when Joe Stanley comes into the room. So he's
Hey,
fun.
that makes for a good performer too, right?
Yeah, yeah, he's a natural. Yeah, that's a natural thing for
That's
him.
so
But
cool.
he's a great husband. It's funny, here we are talking about marriage, and I I loved being married now more than I did when I was younger. Do you know what I mean? How we grow into that, and it's like it's so good. I mean, when it's good, it's really really good. But we're so thankful that we stuck it out in those early days, and learned how to get through some things, because this is good stuff. This is gold, and that's what I hope. That's what I tell my kids, like, hang in there. It's hard, but it's good. It's a good hard, and enjoy the fruit of your labor when you get to this end of it. So
Oh, geez. If everything was easy all along, we
I
would just get bored because we wouldn't have something
right.
to work on, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
That's right. So, well, okay. So I had one thought and it went away. This happens quite often these days. My
It'll
thought
come
went away.
back.
Oh, well, tell us about your podcast and the name of that there again, so that if
Yeah.
anybody wants to come and be encouraged and grow their hope, you know, and as I ask you that, I think about the fact of, you know, these days, I think that we allow too much junk to go into our mind. We watch things on
Mm.
TV, we
Hmm.
listen to people who are having a bad attitude, we watch people with bad attitudes on TV. Even the
Yeah.
kids are watching kids with bad attitudes, and
Mm.
we wonder what's
Yeah.
happening to the young people, right?
Right.
Um, it's so important to find those things that feed your soul, feed your mind, and that that's what keeps us going. I know I can be down and out, and I can listen to some great music
Hmm.
or a
Mm.
great speaker who has great heart, and we're here to lift one another up, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. It's called A Burst of Hope, and it's on all major, podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all of those. And yeah, we'd love for y'all to come and check us out and just listen to some stories, because you will leave feeling more hope filled. I do believe that, and that's a testimony to just how God has set it up, and the people that come and share their stories. And it's a great avenue to tell our stories.
I know it was fun for me whenever I came and did that with y'all. And you know what?
Yeah.
Everything I have been doing is online. So I had to go sit
Ah,
down and be with two real people. I was like, gosh, I'm kind of
yes.
nervous when I had to do that. Yeah,
It
but
was fun.
that was fun. And you and Joe also have what? Do you have a site where people can find you if churches
Yeah.
are interested?
It's really easy. It's just joeandkimstanley.com. Yeah, we have lots of information there about our speaking and our worship ministry, and the podcast is on there too. So it's
All
all there.
right. And you actually
Yeah,
speak at women's events too sometimes. You spoke at my
I
church even
do.
just a while back.
Yes. Yeah, I've got a
Awesome.
lot lined up for this Christmas season, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and here we are in December, and we
Oops.
just now
Yeah.
mentioned Christmas season, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we're at the end of it at this point,
Hmm.
and it's going to be a time to start a brand new year and new goals and
Yes.
thinking about
Yes.
what you want to do different next year than you're doing now, right?
Yep, that's right. I love getting that new calendar for the year. That's always a fun time.
Well,
Mhm.
and I believe relationships and couples, it's important. Something that I've realized as we finish off today, something I realized important that, I used to do it, or I've done it at times, and I kind of stopped planning my life
Mm,
purposely. And I would
mhm,
find that another weekend came and another weekend came and another weekend came. And I'd be like, oh, I meant to do this. Oh, I meant to do that. And so I'm going to take, I actually take this note from my daughter, Melissa, because she's a great planner. And, I guess it's
mm,
because she's at a very busy time during her life. And
mhm,
so I think that's what I would want to leave people with today is the importance of planning for what you want in your life. Is it
mm.
time with family, time with friends? A most important here at the Extraordinary Marriage, of course, is time with your husband, keeping that
Yes,
relationship going. Um, but planning your life and planning what you want. Otherwise, it just slips by and we
true.
stay in defense mode instead of in offense mode or
Yes.
where we want to go, right?
That's right. I think that's so important. And I would say, especially planning like date nights. And I know for us and other couples out there that might work together, that's
Hmm.
really important because you need to have some time when you're just having fun together and not in work mode. And so we planned that. It used to be Thursday nights, and now we're changing at night up, but because of a prior commitment. But we are pretty committed to doing that at least once a week. We try to, even if we just go out see a movie or go somewhere and talk about anything or walk around, it's important to have those times set aside with your
Once
spouse.
a week. I love that. All right. So I'm going to
Yeah.
finish with this one question because you just told me that. I'm going to ask this. A lot of times there's people who need change in their life and others don't need that change. They're just satisfied and they're just very content. So
Hmm.
which one would be the one who needs more change in life, you or Joe?
Ooh.
Oh, it might be a tie if you're having to think about it.
No, I know. I'm trying to think of a nice way to put it. No, I would say probably Joe. He's the kind of guy that like if you go into a restaurant, he's gonna order the same thing if he loves it. It's just
Oh,
him. If it's not
oh,
broke, don't fix it. And
okay.
I don't mean that in a bad way because that leads to a lot of really great things in a relationship. But I would say he's probably the one that change is kind of harder for. I kind of thrive in that. I like new things. I like trying new stuff, going new places, taking a back road. And he likes the sure and steady. We've done it this way. This works. Mm-hmm. Is
I
that
love
what you
that, Kim,
mean?
because guess what? Teaching communication styles, typically the person who is fun loving and very straightforward, like you're kind of talking about earlier, is the one who needs change. Like, I need change. I need a new menu. I need to taste something different,
Mm,
do something different. And my husband he's just happy and easy. And I'm like, oh,
mm,
I wish I was
yeah.
like that sometimes
Well, I
because
know.
I
Yeah.
need
The
change.
same.
So,
Well,
well, you know
we
what?
learn from both. That's why God put us together.
That's right. And as we finish today, just think about that. Do you need change or does your spouse need change? And the importance of paying attention to the needs of your
Mm,
spouse. All right. And if you
that's
like
right.
this today, be sure and subscribe so you don't miss any of the extraordinary marriage. Thank you, Kim, for being with me today.
Thank you, Connie. It was really fun being with you.